Tell them what you really signed 6 weeks ago, Sasha.
I signed nothing but love, Vivian. Ask him yourself.
Tell me what you signed. I need the truth.
Then earn it first. Trust me before you question me.
Sign it. Take the money and take your life back.
I'm not signing for money, Dad. I'm signing for love. The champagne glass in Sasha Monroe's hand did not shake, not even when 300 guests turned to stare at her inside the Kong Tower ballroom, on the night of her first wedding anniversary, under a ceiling of 1,000 hanging lights. She had spent 11 months planning every detail of this night, and not one version of her imagination had included this. Vivian Cho stood in the center of the marble floor, holding a manila folder above her head like a trophy. "Ask her," Vivian said, loud enough for every camera to hear. "Ask your wife what she really signed 6 weeks ago, Daniel." The music stopped mid-note. 100 phones rose into the air. Daniel Kong, 36 years old, one of the most powerful businessmen in the city, turned to look at his wife in her ivory gown. For 1 second, one terrible, unforgivable second, doubt crossed his face. Sasha saw it, and something inside her chest went very still. "Sasha never told you about the money, did she?" Vivian said, smiling now. "Never told you about the lawyer. Never told you about the fortune waiting for her the moment she leaves you." Whispers moved through the crowd like wind through dry grass. Sasha set down her glass. She did not cry. She did not run. She simply looked at her husband, standing there in the tuxedo she'd chosen for him herself, and said the only thing that mattered. "Ask me yourself, Daniel. Don't ask her." But he didn't. Not yet. If this story is already breaking your heart a little, hit subscribe right now, because it only gets more intense from here. Comment below and tell me where in the world you're watching from tonight. Now back to the ballroom. Daniel didn't answer Vivian. He didn't defend his wife either. He simply asked security to close the ballroom doors, and the party that was supposed to celebrate their first year of marriage ended in silence and unfinished cake. In the car home, Sasha stared out the window at the city lights sliding past like something from a life she used to believe in. Daniel sat beside her, close enough to touch, far enough to feel like a stranger. "Is it true?" he finally asked. "Is there a lawyer? A fortune?" Sasha turned to him. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were not. "You've known me 2 years. Married me for 1. And after everything, you still believe I could be bought?" She didn't answer his question. Not because she was hiding guilt. She was hiding pain, and she needed him to trust her first, before she handed him the truth. Her mind drifted unwillingly to the night they met. 2 years earlier, she had been a young interior designer standing on a scaffold at midnight, arguing with a contractor about a wall Daniel Kang's company wanted torn down in a historic hotel lobby. Daniel had walked in unannounced, expecting a fight, and found instead a woman who refused to lower her voice for a billionaire. Sketching notes in the margins of a blueprint with an old silver and black fountain pen she never seemed to set down. He hadn't proposed a partnership that night. He had simply stayed until 2 a.m., listening to her explain exactly why his architect was wrong. She never once asked what he was worth. She hadn't even known his last name until the next morning, and when she finally learned it 3 weeks later, she laughed out loud in the middle of a client meeting, certain someone was playing a joke on her. That was the man she married. She refused to believe he was gone, replaced overnight by a stranger asking about lawyers in the back of a moving car. What Daniel didn't know was this. 3 weeks earlier, a lawyer named Preston Hale had knocked on Sasha's office door, holding a letter that carried a name she hadn't heard spoken aloud in 11 years. Her father's name. Charles Monroe. Charles Monroe was dying, and he was worth $400 million. The letter said Sasha was his only living heir. It also said something else, something Sasha read 3 times before she let herself believe it. To receive a single dollar of her father's fortune, she had to sign an agreement ending her marriage to Daniel Kong within 90 days. Charles had never met Daniel. He didn't need to. To him, any man who married a woman after knowing her only 2 years looked exactly like every partner who had ever used his name, smiling in public, calculating in private. Charles was trying, in the only broken language he knew, to protect the daughter he'd abandoned when she was 7 years old, standing on a porch, waving at a car that never once slowed down. Sasha carried that letter in her purse every single day and told no one. Not her best friend. Not her husband. Because the second she said it out loud, she knew exactly what people would think. The very thing Vivian had just screamed across a ballroom full of witnesses. That she married Daniel Kong for status. And now, 11 years too late, money was choosing between the father who left her and the husband who was starting to doubt her too. 3 days after the gala, Daniel found her in the study, writing in a small leather journal with an old silver and black fountain pen, a pen she never let anyone else touch. "Whose is that?" he asked. "My grandmother Ruth's," Sasha said softly. "She told me before she died, only sign what you truly believe in. I've used it for everything important since I was 19. My business license, our marriage certificate, everything that mattered." Daniel sat across from her, and for once, his composure cracked. "Then tell me what you signed 6 weeks ago. Please. I need to hear it from you. Not from Vivian. Not from the board. Not from a folder held up in a ballroom." Sasha closed the journal, her hand resting flat on its cover like she was protecting something fragile. "You doubted me in front of 300 people, Daniel. You didn't say one word in my defense. Not one. And now you want the truth handed to you like nothing happened. I'm asking you now. Then earn it," she said, standing. "The way I've had to earn everything in my life, starting from a house where love always seemed to have a price. Nobody ever just handed me trust. Why should you get it easier than I did?" She walked out, leaving him alone in the study with a question he couldn't yet answer, and a pen-shaped shadow of doubt he didn't understand. This is the part where everything starts to unravel, and trust me, the next twist changes everything you think you understand about this marriage. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it, and let me know in the comments if you think Daniel still deserves her trust. Let's keep going. Grandma Kong, Daniel's 81-year-old grandmother, was the one who finally broke the silence in the house. She had watched Sasha for a year. How she remembered every staff member's birthday. How she quietly paid a hospital bill for a stranger's mother, and never once mentioned it to anyone. How she cried alone in the garden the week a mysterious letter arrived, certain no one was watching her through the kitchen window. "I saw a lawyer's card in her coat pocket months ago," Grandma Kong told Daniel over tea, her voice steady with the authority of someone who had outlived every rumor the family had ever produced. "Preston Hale. I looked him up myself, Daniel. He doesn't handle prenuptial agreements. He handles inheritance and estate law. Whatever your wife is carrying, it isn't a scheme against you." Daniel felt the floor tilt beneath him. Not a secret account. Not a scheme. An inheritance and a father Sasha never spoke of, for reasons Daniel had never once thought to ask about in 2 years of loving her. He had spent 3 days demanding his wife earn his trust back, when the truth was he had never once earned the right to her secrets in the first place. Before she said a word to anyone else in the house, Grandma Kong found Daniel alone on the balcony that morning, staring out at a city he suddenly wasn't sure he understood anymore. "Your grandfather once accused me of marrying him for his restaurant," she said, standing quietly beside him. "I was so angry I nearly left him that same week. Love does not defend itself loudly, Daniel. It simply waits to see if you will finally ask the right question." By the next morning, the whispers inside Kong Global had changed direction. Grandma Kong, still the most respected voice in the family, stood beside Sasha at breakfast in front of the household staff and half the board. "This woman held our family together during last spring's merger crisis, while some of you were still asleep at your desks," she said, looking directly at Vivian. "I trust her signature more than I trust most of your names." Vivian, watching from the doorway, felt her folder, and her entire plan, losing weight in her hands. Because her story required Sasha to look guilty. And Sasha, for the first time since the gala, no longer looked afraid. That night, Sasha finally told Daniel everything. She told him about being 7 years old, waving at a car pulling out of the driveway, waiting on the porch until the streetlights came on for a father who never turned around. She told him about her mother working 2 jobs and never once complaining, about growing up believing love and money were 2 different languages that never quite translated into each other. She told him about the letter, the 90-day deadline, and the $400 million sitting on the other side of one signature. A signature that would end their marriage on paper forever. I didn't tell you because the moment money and marriage sit in the same sentence, people stop seeing the love, she said, her voice breaking for the first time. I watched what almost happened to my mother when a rich man once offered her money to disappear from a custody fight. I refused to let anything like that happen to us. So I decided I would rather lose the fortune quietly than lose you loudly, in front of the whole world. Daniel took her hands, the same hands that had helped him build an empire neither of them ever needed her money for. I made you feel like you had to carry that alone, he said. That ends tonight. Whatever happens with your father, you don't face it without me standing next to you. For the first time since the ballroom, Sasha let herself cry in front of him, and for the first time in 2 years, Daniel let himself apologize without qualifying it. But peace didn't last. 2 days before Sasha's deadline, Preston Hale called an emergency meeting. Charles Monroe had taken a turn for the worse. If Sasha wanted to see her father alive or sign anything in person, it had to happen now at his estate in front of his lawyers and his second wife. Vivian, cornered and desperate, made one final move. She sent Daniel a photograph of Sasha stepping into Preston Hale's car, outside her office that same morning. No context. No explanation. She's already leaving, the message read. For one heartbeat, the old doubt crawled back into Daniel's chest, quiet and familiar as an old habit. Then he remembered her hands. Her grandmother's pen. Her voice breaking in the dark just nights before. He didn't believe the photograph. He believed his wife. And instead of calling her to ask, he simply got in his own car and followed. We are seconds away from the twist this entire story has been building toward. So if you don't want to miss it, hit that subscribe button right now and stay close, because what happens next nobody sees coming. The Monroe estate was colder than Sasha remembered. All gray stone and empty hallways. Charles Monroe sat propped against pillows, smaller and grayer than the man in her childhood photographs, lawyers on either side of his bed with the agreement already prepared and waiting for a signature. Sign it, Charles said, his voice thin as paper. Take the money. Take your life back from that man. Sasha reached into her bag and took out her grandmother's pen. The room went silent. Daniel, standing quietly in the doorway behind her, said nothing. This moment belonged to her alone, and he understood finally that trust sometimes looks like staying silent at exactly the right time. Sasha signed her name. Then beneath it, in the same steady handwriting, she wrote one more line the lawyers had never prepared her for. I willingly renounce this entire inheritance, effective today by my own free choice. Every dollar gone by her own hand. I'm not signing to leave my marriage, she told her father, setting the pen down gently beside the papers. I'm signing so you finally understand. I never wanted your money. I only ever wanted you to come back for me, even just once. Charles Monroe's eyes filled with tears he hadn't allowed himself in 11 years. I didn't build that condition to punish you, he whispered. I built it because I never believed anyone could love you without wanting what came attached to you. I needed to see if I was wrong. About both of you. He looked past her to Daniel standing quietly in the doorway, and for the first time truly understood exactly who his daughter had chosen and why. Daniel finally stepped forward and spoke, his voice steady. Sir, I didn't marry your daughter for anything you own. I married her for the way she stayed until 2 a.m. defending a wall nobody else believed in. I intend to spend the rest of my life earning the trust one almost lost in one careless second. Your money was never part of that plan, and it never will be. Before we see what happens to Vivian, subscribe and drop a comment with your favorite line from this story so far. It genuinely helps this channel grow. And if you're still here with us, you already know real justice is coming. The truth about the ballroom reached the Kong Global Board 3 days later, when Grandma Kong produced something Vivian never expected. A recorded voicemail Vivian had left for a tabloid editor the night before the gala, offering an exclusive on the gold digger wife, hours before Vivian ever had a single real fact to stand on. Vivian had built the entire scandal before she had one piece of proof, betting everything on the hope that no one would ever check. Even her own family, embarrassed by the exposure, distanced themselves within days, releasing a brief statement that used the word regret 3 times and her name only once. The board terminated her position within the hour. Security walked her out through the same marble lobby, where she once tried to destroy a marriage with a folder full of lies. This time, no cameras were waiting for her. Only silence and the quiet click of a revolving door. Charles Monroe passed away 6 weeks later, peacefully, with his daughter beside him, and for his final visit, her husband's hand resting gently on her shoulder the entire time. He left Sasha nothing in writing. He didn't need to. In his final days, he had quietly moved a small trust, not to Sasha directly, but into a scholarship fund carrying her name, meant for young women rebuilding their lives without family money behind them, the very thing Sasha had spent her whole adult life doing herself, one client and one late night at a time. Daniel never touched a single cent of it. Instead, on their second anniversary, in the very same ballroom where the scandal had first broken, he handed Sasha a small wooden box in front of no cameras and no crowd, only Grandma Kong smiling quietly by the door. Inside sat her grandmother's fountain pen, cleaned and restored, resting beside one folded sheet of paper. It was a new agreement. Not a prenup. Not a contract. Just one handwritten sentence. I choose you with nothing attached for the rest of my life. Sasha signed it with the very same pen her grandmother once gave her. This time, no one in the room doubted a single word, and no folder in the world could have said it better. Grandma Kong, watching quietly from the doorway, only smiled and said nothing at all, because for once, nothing needed explaining. Love should never come with a price tag. Not from a father who mistook money for protection. Not from a husband who let doubt speak louder than trust, even for a moment. Real love asks for nothing and gives everything anyway. If this story moved you even a little, you already know what to do. Subscribe to Empire City Romance Stories so you never miss the next one. Like this video if you believe Sasha earned every bit of her happy ending. Comment below and tell me, would you have signed away the inheritance too? Turn on notifications because our next story might just break your heart in the best way. See you in the next one.